Daily Rambam for Thursday, Chafei Cheshvan Tavshin Pei Aleph, the 18th Perek, Perek Shmeina Aser of Hilchos Shabbos. In this Perek we deal with the Shiurim of Eitzah on Shabbos, which is different for everything, because as the Rambam is going to say, you need the minimum of this item that's beneficial for something. So this actually covers, this is the subject of a number of Prakim in Masechah Shabbos. It starts from the Mishnayos of Shabbos Gemara. It starts in the middle of Perek Zayin, Klal Gadol. Starts already going through some things. Perek Ches, Amitzi Yayin, which is the middle of that. Also in Perek Tes and Perek Yud. But these shiurim are only really relevant the Chiyuv Chatos. But really it's also with every shiur, as the Rambam is going to say later in this Perek. And I believe, therefore, that's the reason why they didn't see any need to bring this in the Torah and Shulchan Aruch, and the same for the other malachas. You don't see these shiurim. So really, this discussion ends with the Rambam. So in Halacha Aleph, the Rambam introduces the discussion and starts discussing the shiur of Eichlin. Halacha Aleph, Amitzi Davar Mereshus HaYachid L'Reshus HaRabbi, Mereshus HaRabbi L'Reshus HaYachid. So if you carry something from one rishus to the other, or vice versa, you're not chayav until there's a shiur here that's beneficial for something, that accomplishes something. And that brings us to this list. These are the shiurim. Anything that's considered food for a person, so then the shiur is automatically always kagre geres. As we saw earlier with the malachas from Chedesh till Eifa, also the shiur, any shiur of any malacha that relates to food is always grei geres. And therefore, umitztarfin zem zeh. And therefore they can be mitztarf one with another. So let's say you have half a grei geres of an apple and half a grei geres of a pear, or half a grei geres of a loaf of bread. They're mitztarf. But the condition being that you have a grei geres from the food itself, not counting chutz min haklipin v'agarinim v'ha'uktzim v'ha'subin v'ha'mursa, not counting the shells, the seeds, the stems, the chaff, and the bran. All right, and that's all we really have to say about the food itself. So we can move on to other things. So now we move on to liquids. Halacha beis yayin kedei reva revius. The minimum of wine is the quarter of a revius. Revius, because really that's the shiur for drinking as a revius. But when it comes to wine, most of it isn't even wine. Most of it is water. You're diluting the wine with the water, so you end up with 1 part wine and 3 parts water. So that's a reva revius. That's the shiur. Imaya karosh, then it's bekazayas. If it's congealed wine, then the shiur is a kazayas. Chalev behema tahira. Kedei Gemiya, the milk of a kosher animal. So the shiur is a gulp. And the Maggid Mishnah quotes the Ramban as saying, we don't know what exactly that shiur is, can't quantify it precisely, but it's approximately what an average person can gulp down. It's less than Kedei Lugmov, less than filling your cheek, and it's certainly less than a revius. That's for kosher milk. V'chalev Tameya, from a not kosher animal, Kedei Lichachoil Ayin Achas. It's to be able to apply as a color, as a paint in an eye. That's shiur. Apparently, that was also something they might put in their eye. Chalev isha v'levin beitza kedei litain b'mashifa. Comes to human milk or the white of an egg. So that the shiur for that is the amount you would put in an ointment. The minimum you would put in an ointment for one's eye. Shemen kedei lasuch ever cotton shehu etzbak tana shleregel cotton ben yoimai. Oil is the amount that you could pour over a small limb. And when we say ever cotton, what do we mean? We mean the small toe on a newborn baby. We also had this shiur earlier in Perek Tes, shiur hamachame mesamayim kedei lirchitz behen ever cotton, for heating up water. Also the same shiur. Here the Rambam spells out what an ever cotton is. Yeah. Tal kedei lashuf as hakiloidus, v'kilor kedei lashuf b'mayim. Do enough that you could use it as a base for an eye ointment, and the eye ointment itself, the amount that you could mix with water. So going in both directions essentially. But both parts of the ointment, the watery base and the ointment itself. Umayim kedei lurchetz pnei medoichan. And water, regular water, is the amount that you would wash the face, the mortar that you crush things with. So that part that you crush with to wash it with water. Dvash, honey kedei litein al reish hakasis. The amount you would put on a wound. And the Maggid Mishnah says, you have this Gemara, and Rashi says, kasis l'chayre is makas hasusim b'hagmalim. It's a wound on an animal. But it concludes that what Rabbi say Pirshim or Rabbi's Taich that it's actually makas shal gabe hayad legav haregel, so on a human. Damush ar kol hamashkin b'chol hashayfchin kedei revius. Blood and all other liquids, and even the putrid liquids, wastewater, the shear is revius. And the Maggid Mishnah quotes Rashi, what's the shayfchin, what's the wastewater good for? What do you do with the revius of wastewater? Gemara says the gabel behenes hatit. You can use that as well for the mud, for the cement. So that's the shear for that as well. Moving on to Meichel Behema, what an animal eats. So the Rambam says Teven Tavua. So if you have straw from grain, Kamloi Pi Para, the amount you'd fit in the mouth of a cow. Teven Kitnius, straw from beans, things like that. Kamloi Pi Gomel, the size of a camel. Now the size of a camel is larger. A camel's mouth can eat more than so. What if you took Teven Kitnius and you decided, instead of feeding it to a cow, I'm going to feed it to a cow, and you only brought the shear that fits in the mouth of a cow, you're also chayav, even though a cow wouldn't ordinarily eat that, but so that's since you appropriated it for that purpose, even though it's not the usual, but that makes it chashuv, and that's shear. Amir, so it's another kind of straw. Kamlei pitala, that type is for the mouth of a sheep. Savim kamlei pigadi, and grass is the mouth of a goat. We had this shear also earlier in Perek. We said a toilesh. If you're plucking ocean and things like that, so if you're doing it for a behema, the shear is kamlei pigadi. We also had it by ma'amer, that if you're bundling it for an animal, shiuri kamlei pigadi. That's the shear we have here. And the Maggid Mishnah says, the Rashi says that the sheep's mouth is larger than the goat, and however, Amir is not edible for a goat, so that's why you can't use the smaller shear. You need the bigger shear. Mashenken asavim are edible even for a goat, so therefore we use the smaller shear. Alei shum ba'alei b'tzolim. When it comes to the leaves of garlic or onions, if it's still moist, then back to the regular shear of gregares for food, if it's edible for humans. If it's dry, then it's not for humans. Then it's kamloi pi gedi. Then back to the goat. A goat would not eat the lachem. So therefore, we end up with the shear for humans. Now, when these things have different shiurim, you can't be mitzaref them together for the chomer, which is the smaller shear, but they could be mitzaref for the kal, which is the larger shear. Ketzad, so we said Tevin is Pipara, and Tevin Tvu is Pipara, and Tevin Kitnis is Pigomo. So Myesh Bishneim Kimle Pipara, the smaller shear, Potter. Kimle Pigomo, the larger shear, then they're mitzvah together in Chai, Shabbos, and that's always the rule. And Mishnah quotes the Gemara, and Rashi says, Misha Shiuri Godel, have a cow, the Einam Mitzvah Flashtem Chomer, the Holei Chashav. It's not Chashav enough. But the Chashav is Mashlam the cow. Halacha Daled, wood. You take out wood. Terufa, Bashemen, Unasuno, Be'ilpa. So if you carry wood on Shabbos, so it's the amount of wood that you could use to cook the size of a garas from a chicken egg. And we're describing, when we say a chicken egg, we're describing it already beaten and mixed with oil in the pan, or in the pot. We had this shear of Chagigeras most early in Perek Ches over there from Ma'amer. We said if you can bring Ma'amer for Hasaka, for burning wood, then it's Kedei Lavashal Beitza. And when we say Beitza, it's Shaltarna Goylem. And when we say that, we mean Kedei Lavashal Hageres Mi Beitza, which is a third of a Beitza Korbanah. Hamaitzi Kana, what if you take out a reed, a hard reed? Because it allows his kulmus samagia l'rashi etzba'is. So it has to be the size that you could turn into a pen that would reach from your hand till the tips of your fingers. That's how you write. But if it's too thick to make a pen or it's broken, then shiur ka'etzim, then it's like regular wood. The shear is like wood. Halacha hay, spices, and then a bunch of things where the shear is kol shehu. So Amaiti Tavalan, if you take out spices, Kadela Tabel Beitza, the amount that you need to put spices on an egg. And it's star from Zemzeh, and we just said Tavalan. Tavalan encompasses a whole bunch of things, they're all mitzvah with each other. Then we move on to a bunch of things that are kosher. Pelas, peppers, kosher, even just the smallest amount is useful. Itron is pine sap, kosher. Reach toiv, a good smell, kosher. Reach ra, bad smell, kosher. Mile besamim, perfume, kol shehem. Argaman toiv, good purple dye, kol shehu. Besulas havered, rosebud, achas, one. It's already useful. Mini matacha is hakoshim, hard metals, going to cheshes, barzel, bronze or iron, kol shehem. Me'afara mizbeach, me'avnei mizbeach, me'mekek svarim, me'mekek mitbechesein, the dust, the dirt of the mizbeach, the stones of the mizbeach, or parts of svarim that completely rotted, decomposed, crumbled, or the mitbeches, the things you cover the svarim with. Kol shehein, all four of these things is also a shear of a kol shehu. Why? Because even the smallest amount, you want to put it in geniza, you want to bury it respectfully. Shemus, gachelas, a kol shehu, a meitzi shalabes, and a flame is potter. Shalabes itself is not considered a substance. Moving on to seeds, but seeds for planting. If you take out seeds for a garden which aren't edible, so it's certainly going to be less than ageres. And what is the shear? So mizera kishuin shnayim. Kishuin is cucumber-like plants. To mizera hadluin, more like squash, things like that. Gerd shnayim, also two. Mizera poela mitri shnayim, the mitri bean, also two. Hamaitzi subin. Subin is the coarse bran. It's not edible apparently. So you put it on the crucible. The crucible is the keli that the smiths use to melt things. So you need some of this bran. You put it on the opening of the kur, and that's the use for it. We also had earlier in Perek Ches on a gabel as offer if you're needing dirt that's the told of lush. And what's the shear? Also for pikor, that's kedelaso is pikor shel tzarfis of. And we're going to see again the pikor later on, later halachos as well. Hamaitzi mursan. Mursan is finer bran. So now it depends. If it's for human consumption, shira kagagas. The standard. La behema for an animal, shira kamle pigdi, also standard. That's the smallest one. If a goat can eat it. The tzvia kadelet bagad cotton. If it's for dye, then to dye a small piece of clothing. Lulve zradin. Lulve zradin are like the buds on trees. V'charuvim carob. Achalayam tiku kagageres. If they're not sweet and only humans eat them, so then it's kagageres, like a human shear. Mishiyam tiku, once they're sweet, and animals can eat them. Kimlei pigadi, the size for an animal. Abaluf, v'chardel, v'termusin. So chardel is mustard, and termus is a type of bean, and luf is a type of onion. Sh'ar kalin achbashin, and all these other things that can be pickled. Ben shiyam tiku, ben shaloyam tiku, kagageres. Humans are eating it, and it's a share of kagageres. Halacha zayin. Hamaitzi gar'inim. So gar'inim are seeds that are edible. Imla chila chamesh if it's for eating 5. Imla saka, and if it's for firewood. I think eitzim is the shear that we said earlier for eitzim for lamash kagageres. It's time to go. Imla cheshben, and if you simply brought it along to help as a counting aid, to aid with counting. Shtayim, then 2 is the minimum. V'imla zriya, and if it's for actual planting, shtayim, it's 2. Hamaitzi Ezoiv. So the Ezoiv is the grass that you use in certain inyanim for Tara. So Leicholem again, Kagregaris. Labahema, Kam Leipigdi. Leitzim, Kashira Eitzim. This is all the same so far. Then Hazaya, if you're taking a dafka to do Hazaya, then it's Kashira Hazaya. That's the shir. Now we move on to materials that are used for dyeing and for cleaning. So the shells of nuts or pomegranates, the different plants we mentioned before. Anything else that's a dye, something that can dye a small baguette. And the Rambam says, like the hairnet that the girls put on their heads, that's a baguette cotton. Made like lion ben urine that's 40 days old, a Nesser, Alexandria, a Beirus, the Kamania, the Ashlag, all of these things, they're all considered cleaning agents, Sharkal, Manakan, anything like that. So then it's for washing, for cleaning, the same size. Haitzi Samonin Shiruyan, if you have herbs that are being soaked, the amount which you could use to dye a sample for someone who weaves. Halacha tes ink. If you're taking out ink and the ink is on the kolmis itself, so then you need to have enough. Should be enough ink there to write 2 letters. But if you took the ink out separately, or in the inkwell, you're going to need more. You need the amount from which, if you were to dip the kolmis, you would get the amount that you need to write to oasis. So you need a little more in the ink to get that amount onto the kolmis. Let's say there was in the inkwell there was enough for 1 letter, and on the pen there was enough for 1 letter. Or the ink alone has 1 letter, and again on the pen is for 1 letter. Is suffix. Now it's not clear because you said that if it's not on the kolmis, then you need a little more really. If you took 2 letters, to the ink, that's the amount for 2 letters, and you wrote them, you put the ink down on paper while you're writing, so you're chayev also for hitzah. By writing it, by putting the ink to paper, you just were maniachet. You walked out of the house, you were carrying it, and then you put it on the paper. So even though you're still walking, but it went on the paper, so that's hanacha. If you took out the ink from 1 letter and you wrote it, then you went out and you brought out the ink for a second letter and you wrote it, you didn't carry the 2 at the same time. It's not like siva where you can be mitzvah of 2 aces. Here you have to carry the 2 aces together. Halacha yud. Kaichal and things like that. Amaitzi kaichal. So kaichal is the paint that goes in the eye. Bein l'rafua, bein l'tachshit, whether it's for medicinal reasons or tachshit is for decoration. Now we had the idea of refuah earlier in Perek Beis when we spoke about chayla. We said the kaichal einov min hagoy b'Shabbos af b'she'ein sham sakana. We mentioned that one of the things chayla she'ein bei sakana can get from a goy is this refuah of applying this to the eye. But of course, we also were familiar with dyeing the eye for tachshit. So that's the shir. For 1 eye. And if when it comes to tachshit, when it comes to kishot, they always do 2 eyes. They don't just do 1 eye at a time. And that's the reason why I took it. It was refuah. It's still 1 eye. But if for kishot, it's always a minimum of 2 eyes. Then so then the shir is for 2 eyes. The Maggid Mishnah says you have this Gemara, you have the Mishnah that mentions this. And the Gemara says, well, why 1 eye? The Mishnah said and it asks why 1? Well, it's always 2, no? So Huna said that snuais, they're so covered over. I think Pashut means that half their face is covered, so only 1 eye was sticking out. So that was the 1 eye that they put kaichal on. More than that, it's not sneers. There's a brisa where it says that refuah is for 1 eye and kishut is for 2 eyes. So the Gemara answers, okay, that must be the people, the bnei kfarim, that aren't so tznius, so they don't need to be so tznius, whatever the case is, and they do both eyes. So that's where the Ram got this distinction, depending on what the practice is. Zefes v'gafris, tar and sulfur, k'dei lasis nekeb, to make a hole. Now, what does that mean? So the way Rashi explains it, my Mishnah quotes Rashi, is that Rashi says you have a keli, and in the keli you put kesef chai. What's kesef chai? Kesef chai is a term that's used for mercury. Mercury in English also sometimes called quicksilver. There's an association between silver and mercury. And in Hebrew it's called kesef chai. So you put the kesef chai in the keli, you put the mercury in the keli, and now Rashi says soisein piv bezefas ubegafres. You use this tar, the silver, to seal the vial of mercury, and then you make a tiny hole in the zefas and gafres in order to be able to get the mercury out. But not enough if it just is dangling around or falls on its side. It's a very tiny hole. It's like a dropper. You literally have to hold it, and then one drop comes out at a time.
That's highly poisonous. The stuff is highly, highly poisonous.
Right. So that's why you've been very careful. So that's the zefas and the gafres. Shaiva today litein al pinak of cotton. Wax is to put on a small hole. Devek today litein bereish hashavshavas. Glue to put on shavshavas. What's a shavshavas? So the Gersa and the Mishnah of Gemara is hashavshav, different, but the Gemara says it's something to do with hunting. So Rashi explains that you have a little piece of wood, and on it you put glue, and the bird settles down on it, and then it finds that it's stuck. And it says Tzarech Lasos Sham Harbe. You need to put a lot of devek so that it actually catches the bird. The bird gets stuck. So that's the shear of devek. Revav is fat, grease. Usually you see it in like a negative connotation. It doesn't have a revav, something that's very clean. It doesn't have a stain of grease. But revav is grease. So you're using it to grease. You have a cake or something like that in the oven. You want to grease the bottom the size of a sela. That's the minimum for a revav. Now we come to types of earth. Hamaitzi adama, amount of earth. For the seal of a letter. Tit, so that's mud. Pikur, that's the amount that you would need to make for the actual P of the core. Like I mentioned earlier, also the gabi lush, the shear is to make the P core. Zevel or choil dak, fertilizer or thin sand. Kadela zabel kresha, to fertilize a leek, the vegetable. Choil gas, thick sand. Kadela arev imloy kaf shel sayodin sid. So that is the amount you need to mix into the spoon of someone who makes lime. That's one of the ingredients. So the amount you put on in a spoon to create a spoon of lime. Charsis is firm clay. That's for the pikor. So the previous pikor is, I guess, for other, not for blacksmith. And for tzarfezov, charsis is the pikor of the tzarfezov, the crucible. Sayar, hair, the lagabel tit, lases pikor shel tzarfezov. Also, it's part of something you put in the mud that you're making for that pikor for the tzarfezov. Sid, so the lime itself, the amount that you would put on a small finger of a girl. And you look in the Mishnah and the Gemara, different reasons why they had this practice, whatever benefit they thought. They didn't just put it on one finger, they put it multiple. But the minimum is one finger. Afar ve'efer. I guess there's a difference here, but there's a distinction here between Adama and Afar. But Afar ve'efer, dirt and ashes, kadei l'chaseis dam tzipraktana, to do the mitzvah of kisi adam for a small bird. Tzirur even, a rock, a pebble, kadei babahema v'targish. Enough to throw out a rock and it should feel it. That's one of the benefits you have with a rock, is to throw it at an animal, but it has to feel it, otherwise it's pointless. V'hu mishkal asar zuzim, and the shear is the weight of 10 zuz. Cheres, kadei l'kal boy revius, earthenware, the amount that can contain a revius of liquid. Halacha yud beis, a rope and things like that. Hamaitzi chevel, if you carry a rope on Shabbos, v'lases oizen la kupa, to make a handle for a container. Gmi is a reed. I guess that's still, we had it earlier. That's something that's it's still soft and bendable. K'delases tlui lanafa v'lachvara, so you can make something to hang the sifter from. Hutzin are palm leaves. K'delases oizen l'kfifa mitzris, to make a handle to another one of these baskets, something like that. Siv, that's the stuff that grows on the palm tree. It's called bast. The man you would put on a small funnel of wine. Moichin, which is like unprocessed wool, just pieces of wool. Kedelas is kader ke'egres, the amount you can make a ball the size of a nut. Etzem kedelas is tarva, the bone the size to make a spoon. Schuches kedei ligrid ba reisha kadked ad sheyifza shtei nimen ka'achas. Glass is to sharpen the point of a weaver's needle, or to cut two threads, or until it cuts two threads at once. So a weaver has a needle, and that's use it to sharpen it. That's what the glass is. The minimum of glass is used for that. Halacha Yud Gimel, things that are type of things you might be using for like sewing material, weaving material. Amaitzi shtei nimen biznava sus and biznava para. If you have two hairs out of the tail of the horse and the tail of the cow, chayav. And if you take the really stiff ones out of the chazer, even one you're chayav. Nitzrei dekel, behein chutei ha'etz, the fibers from a date palm, just fibers, chutin in the tree, shtayim, two. Choyrei dekel, behein klipei achariyos, that's like the bark of the branches, achas, one. Tzemer gefen, cotton, mitzemer kolach, sea silk, something you do some kind of silk-like material you get from the plant in the sea. Tzemer gmalim, camel's wool, barnovim, rabbit's wool, b'chayesh b'yam, the wool from some sea creature, ushar kol nitzvah, and anything else that you could use for these types of malachas. The litvais, chut, eirech, arba, tvachim, the amount that you could spin into a thread that's the length of 4 tvachim. This is the shear we also had earlier for a number of malachas. Eirech hasit kafel, we had this by malabain. For example, that if you're malabain, that the shear is to make to be malabain the amount that you could turn into 1 chut of 4 tvachim. If you carry part of clothing, part of a sack, part of skin, leather, so the same shear for tum will be the shear for how much you carry in your chayav. A beged shleisha al shleisha, 3 tvachim for a beged, a sack or ball, 4 tvachim for a sack, a chamisha, 5 by 5 for leather. Halacha Yadalad, speaking of hamaitzi shleinis abit klal. What if you take out the skin of an animal that was not processed at all? Aladai nurak, it's still very soft. So that's not the regular use of leather. So what can you use that for? So it would be the amount to wrap around a small weight that weighs a shekel. Shekel, of course, originally was a weight. Haya maluach, if it had already been salted, which is one of the steps of processing, but not with the flour, the gall, whatever it is, the things that the Rambam discussed that you use to process it. Shiura kadelas is kameya, so then the shear is for the size of kameya. That's also a shear we had earlier in Perek Aleph for mafshit and a bunch of malachas relating to skin, that often the minimum is the size of a kameya. Haya also a bekamach, had already done the flour, but is but not the next step. Shiura kadei lichtev all of us a get. Now already it's something you write the get on. Nigbari budai, and if you already completed it, so then that's what we said in the last halacha, shiurei chamisha al chamisha, and it's 5 by 5. Halacha tezvav, hamaitzi klaf me'ubad. If you have already klaf, it's parchment for writing. Then it's kadei lichtav olav parsha shma adu b'sharacha, to write that parsha. The chsustus, so we know it's part of the other part of the klaf. Kadei lichtav olav mezuzah. So that we said the chsustus is for mezuzah, so that's the shear for that. Niyar, regular paper, although paper was so regular then, but paper was used for certain things. The lichtiv olav shtei ha'oisius shall kesher ha'moichsim. So kesher ha'moichsim is the tax collectors. They had some kind of signature, some kind of seal, and they wrote the 2 letters on it. And they wrote it on paper. So that's the sheer of paper you can write that on. Shehein gedoyles ma'osis shalom, which is larger than regular letters. Ha'moitzi kesher ha'moichsim. What if you take the kesher ha'moichsim out itself? You're chayav al b'shekvar her la moiches v'niftar by. even though what's it good for? Didn't you already show it to the Moichas? Didn't you already pass by and use it for whatever you could use it? No. You took a receipt. You can always use the receipt for something. What if you have a paper, but the paper is either it's a document, it's something that was already paid off, or it's a paper where it was erased. So what can you use this paper for? It's not really for writing. So to wrap it around a small jar of this perfume called palyatin. If there's enough space, white space, that the Meiches could write his thing on it, and also Chayev.
When the Gemara uses the Lashon Chaspa Ba'alma, it's not so simple. There's a use for Chaspa also.
Right. Often they'll say, it's what's it good for? Kedei Lotzer, Al Pi Tzleichas. That's Halacha Tezayin. If you carry an actual animal, even though they're alive, so to some extent something that's alive carries itself, so you're chayav for animals. So Adam Chai Einay Masay. But a living person, that we say in the Malacha Shabbos, does not count as a mas, you're not chayav. But if he was tied up or sick and he can't really carry himself, then then you are chayav. But Isha Medadas B'Noah B'Zman Shnei Talachas U'Maniach Achas, and a woman's allowed to walk her son on Shabbos if he's at the stage where he can already pick up a foot, put down a foot. So it's not like if he picks up both feet at a time, then she's carrying him. But if she's just holding his hand and he's picking up one foot at a time, then he's already walking properly. You're allowed to do that on Shabbos. Halacha Yud Zayin. You take out a live baby with a kiss on his neck. So chayav mishum kiss. So you're not chayav for the tinok, but you're chayav for the kiss that was hanging. She'ena kiss tfeil tinok, because we don't say that it's just tafel, and therefore in that case the kiss you wouldn't be chayav for either. But we don't say that, so you are chayav. Avlam haitzi yes agada, but if you take out an adult. Even if he's wearing his clothing and his rings and potter, you're potter for everything. It's all tafel to him. It's secondary to him, and he himself he's a adam chai. But if he has stuff folded on his shoulder, then you're chayav for that, because that's not really he's not really wearing it. Take out the live grasshopper, kolshu. Then it's even the smallest amount, whatever, it's alive, so whatever size it is. Umeis, if it's dead, then it turns into food. Kagregaris.
Or the edible grasshopper.
Yeah. Sipaidus kramim, another one of these hopping creatures. Bein chaya, bein mesa, kol shehu, no matter if it's alive or dead, a very small amount. But ishmatzniya neisa l'rafur, because it has medicinal properties, and they use even the smallest amount for that, so that's why that's a shir. Chen kol kayetzav, the same for anything like that. Hameis, banavela, v'asharetz, a dead person or a dead animal, or sharetz, kashir tumasan, kakshir haitzaasan. Again, we have this principle that we just apply the rule for tumah, like we had in Halach Yud Gimel. Mesun available kazayas, the size of an olive, sharetz b'ka'adasha, and the size for sharetz is adasha, which is the smaller thing.
Small one?
A lentil. Halacha Yutes, hayasham kazayas mitzumtzum. If there was exactly kazayas and you took half a zayas and you carried it away, you're chayav, because you benefit, even though you don't need half a zayas of it, but you benefited by lessening it from making things tamei. But if there was a kazayas and a half, you took a chatzazayas, then you didn't accomplish anything. You don't have the sheer kazayas for it to be beneficial in its own right, and you didn't take away from the sheer tumah. So you're part of tumas, and you can apply.
I don't get it. If there was a
Right. So we said earlier that really for these things the shear is a kazayas. However, he said sometimes you benefit by breaking up the shear. When it comes to a shear tumah, by taking part of the tumah away, you benefited by eliminating the source of tumah.
Well, you're not carrying out a shear.
But it was whatever you're carrying has to serve some benefit. So the usual benefit is for the object itself.
All of a sudden,
What do you need whatever you need a mace for, or whatever is a significant amount of a mace is a kazayas. However, over here you don't need the thing itself, but there's the benefit that's being accomplished by carrying it, taking away. So that's only though if you're actually accomplishing that. If it's kazayas or mechta, then you're not. Chav Amedra Ramonim Shani Chayiv Elal Hitzas Kashir Bishar Hitzi Stam. Now this whole Perek that we've been saying, all these shiurim, when are you Chayiv? Stam. You walked out of the house without explaining, without thinking about why you're actually carrying all these random objects. So that's the shir that we apply. But if your specific intention is you're going to plant it, you're going to use it for medicine, you're going to show it to someone, if you find benefit in this small amount, you put it away, it was a smaller amount, you put it away, it was taka smaller, but you had a specific benefit in mind. Then you forgot why you put it away. You took it out. So now, do we look at the moment when you were matzniah it, or do we look at now? Because right now you don't know why you're taking it out, but originally you did set it aside and you show that this was significant to you. So it says, you're chayiv even for the small amount because we follow the original thought. That's only for the person who put it away. But anyone else who finds it in the drawer, they don't know why you put it in the drawer. It doesn't have any significance to them. If someone had already separated it, but then he threw it back into the collection of all the rest, even though you could still tell it, oh, that's the one that was separate, he already canceled his original thought. So now you need to revert back to the regular share. Halacha Chav Beis. Davar she'ein derech min adam latzniya. Ve'ein yiroy latzniya. What if it's something that no one ever puts away? There's literally no use. Goin dam hanida, like menstrual blood. What do you need that for? If someone put it away, and he takes it out, then he's chayav because he gave it significance. But everyone else is potter. You're only chayav for taking out something that something you would put away for something. Now we get to another point that sort of cancels out a lot of the significance of this Perek. If you take out just half a share, you're potter. And that goes for every malacha, that if you do only half of the share, you're potter. If you took out half and you put it down, you took out the other half, you're chayev. And if you picked up the first one before putting down the second one, we say it's like it's burnt, it's gone, and you're potter. Took out half a shear and you put it down, and then you took out another half, and you put it over the first one within 3 tvachim. You're chayav, because being maverit, passing it over the first one within 3 tvachim, it's as if it landed. But if you threw it and it passed within 3 tvachim, that doesn't count. It actually has to land. If you took out half a shear, you took out another half a shear, and it was all while not knowing what you were doing, the reshus achas chayav. If you took it all to one reshus, you're chayav. The shtei reshus, if it was to two, if there's another rishus between them that would make you chayav, then you're potter. But if there's just a carmelist separating the two, then we count it as one rishus for chayav chatas, you're chayav. You took out, you left the house, it was less than the shear. But before you put it down, it somehow blew up, and now it's the size of a shear. Or the vice versa. You took it out, it was the size of a shear. Before you could put it down, it shrank, and now it's less than a shear. You're potter. You took out a gagaris for eating, but some and it shrank before putting it down. Okay, but now the chashav but then you thought, you know what? I'll use it for something else who doesn't need a shear. In this case, you're chayav. We follow your thought when you put it down. You took a lesson of Kagaris for planting. Before you put it down, you thought, no, I'm going to eat it. And now for eating, it's not a sufficient shear. When you took it out, it was a sufficient shear. But now, before putting it down, you change your mind and it's you thought about eating, which it's not a good shear for. Then you're pater. If you took it out less than a gegeres for zriya, and then before you put it down, it puffed up. And it turned into the size of gegeres. Before you can think that you want to eat it, then you're chayiv. Because when you took it out and it was small, you were going to use it for refuah. And when you change your mind to achila, it already grown to the size that's a shir achila, so you're chayiv. Even if you hadn't thought, you'd be mischayev. You took it out for eating, and then it shrank, and then it puffed up again. So we're not sure, did it get cancelled out here? Maybe not. So if you threw, now that's the sheer tuma in a bias. So if you threw a kazayas into the bias tuma and it was mashlim to the sheer of a kabetza, now it is a suffix in the schayv kazayas and ishlam ashir linyan tuma. You also have a question here: are you chayav for the kazayas alone because you accomplished something here? You were mashlim the sheer tuma of a kabetza or not? It's a suffix. Halacha chavchas amaitzi pachas mikashir. The final halacha. This is actually a halacha that Rabbi quotes in a number of places. If you take a less than a shear, even though you took it out in a keli, so you should be chayav for the keli. You took out a whole keli. Putter. No, you're putter both for the thing you took out and for the keli. Shakli tfeilaloi. Because the whole reason why you're holding this cup is to hold this small thing. And the small thing itself doesn't have a shear. And the keli is a tuffle to that. So you're potter. You didn't want to take out the kli. You wanted to just take out the thing. The kli is just helping you take out the thing inside. But it ain't boik hashir, and that doesn't have a shear. And therefore, so if you took out someone who is alive, who's not tied up on a bed, and we said earlier that carrying out a person who's not tied, you're potter, because he's noises atzmai. So you took him out on a whole bed. This is a huge bed here. Potter afal hamita. You're potter for the bed as well. Hamita tfeil aloi. The bed is tuffle to him. Anything like that. So the Rabbi uses this in a number of places to say that you see the power of ikar and tuffle. That different nyanim, when it comes to shlichus. If your homitzias is that you're on shlichus, and so you're bottled to that, you're tuffle to that. So then your mamish don't count for anything. Your mamish require your whole purpose is just to serve masha b'toichem. Last halacha in halacha chavches amaitzi kupas hareichlim. If you take out the reichel or the merchants, the ones who used to go around selling their wares from one big box. So even though it has many things inside, even if it's in his hand, you only chayav one, not for the multiple things. Shem haitzah. Echadu, it counts as one eitzah, it's one half, just like we had earlier with eitzah, a box full of small items, and you have to push the whole box out, not part of the box, because the individual things inside don't count as individuals, it's the whole box.